Hello and welcome to F1 Daily, your daily dose of Formula One right here on the F1 Word. How is everyone in chat this evening? You look well ready for a bit of a debate here. We've got some good stories tonight and quite a lot to go through. And when I say quite a lot, we've got a relatively biggish one, a good pot-stirring one, and quite frankly, a laughable one. But we'll get onto all those in just a minute. I swore I wasn't going to say that, but I couldn't help myself. You all not ready for this one, so let's jump pretty much straight into this one. McLaren apparently have rejected Toro Rosso's approach to loan Lando Norris, with reports suggesting the move would have seen Brendan Hartley replaced from as early as the Austrian Grand Prix onwards. Now, if you remember a couple of weeks back, there was all this talk, wasn't there, about him going before Canada, and now it's been moved back to Austria and talk that Norris is in the frame. There was already talk of Wehrlein and Kubica. It looks, and we'll come on to it in a moment, as though Toro Rosso have very much made their mind up, and I think, yes, like I said, we'll go on to it in a minute and give some opinion, because you've got to feel for Hartley a little bit, but it's also believed that the deal Toro Rosso wanted would have included a clause that could see the team extend his stay into the 2019 season. And apparently, take some of this with a pinch of salt. This is coming from multiple sources, and you can imagine the internet is a crazy place at times. But apparently that was one of the sticking points. The only quote from McLaren was, "We aren't surprised other teams approach our drivers. They clearly believe they are as talented as we do." Toro Rosso have said nothing. This is why I'm saying take a little bit with a pinch of salt. But Lando Norris has had his say, which came quite late on today. Early today, he popped a tweet out of him sat in his car in just after the news had broken. So I think that was kind of his answer. But he said, "I am flattered by the stories, but I'm focused on F2 and committed to McLaren. I leave this sort of thing to my management." What you want to read into that is entirely up to you. I read that as maybe it's happening, but probably not. I don't think he'll go to Toro Rosso. I don't see why McLaren would send him there. I do get the feeling, though, that although this has been rejected, it is not the last we're going to hear of it, to be perfectly honest. According to the sources close to Lando Norris, there are reports that McLaren must offer the Brit a full-time drive by the end of October this year, and if they don't, he is free to look elsewhere. So clearly, if that's true, Toro Rosso have seen an opportunity there to grab him for next season. I don't know. I would not be surprised to see Toro Rosso approach McLaren again with a better deal, perhaps one where they agree to take him to the end of the season rather than into next year. But if there is that clause for October, then absolutely, you can kind of understand why Toro Rosso want him. He's an up-and-coming star. I know he's British, and I'm going to get a lot of, "Oh, you're only saying that because he's British and you're British," but it's not. Anybody with a brain can see the talent that he's got. There are so many coming through F2. He's not alone in that category, so you totally understand why Toro Rosso are going for it. What that says about their own young driver program, aside from there's not really anybody good enough for Formula One yet, I don't know. What this says about Toro Rosso as a whole, and Red Bull as a whole, of course, have they kind of put themselves in this position now where dropping drivers by the wayside left, right and centre has now left them with basically no option other than to go begging other teams for their drivers. So I think a little added thing to this that I think has got people talking and a little bit excited as well is that it is McLaren, Toro Rosso, Renault, Honda, and that's got people getting a little bit excited. But to be honest, I'm quite torn on this one. On the one hand, I think it would be great for Norris, and I think it would be good for McLaren in many ways. It would give him some experience of Formula One and would allow McLaren to assess whether he is ready for Formula One in 2019, if they need to take him on. But on the other hand, think about this commercially, and I've done this quite a lot lately, put my business brain on, but if Norris jumps in that Toro Rosso and starts beating Alonso and Van Dorn in a car powered by an engine they ditched, that, although it may not happen, is a big risk and would be an absolute PR disaster. If they were powered by Renault still, or they had a Ferrari engine in the back of that Toro Rosso, or something like that, I think it'd be more likely to happen. The fact it's powered by Honda, it will matter. People say it doesn't, but it will matter. It'll be in McLaren's minds. But more importantly, and the point I want to make before I come to you guys, what's the rush? He's 18? He's got a very long career ahead of him. Why throw him into a huge pile of pressure, if you like, especially in the ruthless environment that is Red Bull? Let's not forget that. Look at Max Verstappen, immense talent, big star of the future, but rushed into Formula One and is right under the microscope, and every single mistake he makes, the pressure gets poured on. So why would you take that risk? And as I say, particularly in that environment. But from Norris's perspective, I think he'd quite fancy a go at it. And I think you have to remember as well that it would be a foot in the Red Bull door. And if McLaren decided not to take him back, or they could get some kind of deal in place to keep him permanently, that's a huge opportunity of his career. So I could imagine not knowing the guy particularly, I could imagine that he's probably quite torn himself on it. But it looks as though he'll stay at McLaren. I would be very surprised if he moves to Toro Rosso long term. He might get in at some point in this season. But on Brendan Hartley, I covered this in a video a couple of weeks back, and I stand by everything I said about him, to be perfectly honest. If he is still not performing by the summer break, then drop him. Absolutely, 100% get rid of him. It's been 6 races. He's been unlucky. Yes, some mistakes are his own and completely understandable that Toro Rosso are getting miffed with him, but he has been unlucky as well. Look at China. Was fighting with his teammate takes him out effectively, so there's no need to be ditching him after 6 races. Yeah, okay, he had a couple of races back in 2017, but for him and Gasly, I completely write them off as nothing because Toro Rosso were dire at the end of last year, and that's that. So I don't like this. I don't think it's right to be ditching drivers after 6 races unless they've been horrific, and he hasn't been horrific. When you look at the stats, he's pretty even on qualifying with his teammate and neck in terms of being outraced by his teammate, 3 apiece in races. So he's not been that bad. Yes, the points, of course, and that's what matters, but in terms of racing, he's not been that bad. But what this reminds me of is it's all very public, very, a lot of leaks here and a lot of leaks there. How the hell is that going to help the guy perform? Yeah, okay, he could look at the reports and say, I need to step up, I need to get going. But it's just adding the pressure. And for me, this feels like the Sainz, Palmer, Renault, Toro Rosso situation last year, where he's probably been kept in the dark. They've made their mind up and they're doing it not publicly. That's the wrong phrase because they're not saying it publicly, but there are a lot of leaks going on and they don't come from nowhere. I hate saying there's no smoke without fire, but it's totally true. So, at the end of the day, I don't know. I do feel for him. And I don't know what to say. I'm going to come to you guys on the chat because I do feel for Hartley. I don't think this is going to happen. I get the impression that this is Toro Rosso making their mind up either way. I think he's going to go. But, I think, 19 points Gasly, is it something like that? And 1 point for Hartley. So you can kind of see their point of view. But like I say, that doesn't tell the full story. And yeah, Edward Smith, Hartley has done better than Max. Max has not been dropped. I don't think he's done better than Max at all. But, has Toro Rosso dropped Hartley? They've not dropped him, but it looks as though the decision's been made. Because like I say, this sort of thing doesn't come out of nowhere. This isn't something that, I don't know, somebody just made. Well, it probably is somebody makes up in a corner somewhere, but in terms of Toro Rosso's history and the way they drop drivers, it kind of makes the same noises as the one with Kvyat and again with Palmer at Renault last year as well. It's sort of the same kind of noises around Formula One. So Gene X says Hartley is a good driver. He's a good driver. I don't know if he's F1 material. I doubted that when he got the seat, but I tell you what, he is a nice guy. He's a very, very nice guy. Hartley isn't bad, agree. A couple saying Wehrlein, he was linked with that seat, of course, a couple of weeks back. So was Robert Kubica, so possibly. Good question though from Neil. Does this confirm Alonso will retire next season? And it doesn't confirm anything. This, like I say, take some of this with a pinch of salt. This isn't confirming anything as such. It's pretty much, although it's in some fairly reliable sources and there have been comments from all parties apart from Toro Rosso, you still have to remember that this is effectively still paper talk. So very much going off of what we've got at the moment. But I don't think it confirms Alonso will go. What I think it does say is McLaren want to make sure they've got all their options open should he decide to disappear. I think that's the biggest thing. So I like how honest Hartley is and how good he approaches interviews. Agree. I think he's brilliant in that respect. Don't understand why they even extended his contract for this year. I think he said he was ready, Christian, and they were pretty confident he was ready. It was Helmut Marko, wasn't it? It was pretty much full of praise for him just a few months ago. So that just sums up Red Bull, I think. Enam Ahmed, absolutely. Get him in that car. Why not? He's been pretty decent in Euro F3, and there is some bias in there, and I don't care. But yeah. Do you think he should be dropped? Do you think he's doing an absolutely horrendous job? Would you drop him? Who would you put in his place? Because aside from somebody like Norris or a Wehrlein, there isn't really anybody. Dan Ticktum hasn't got a super license as far as I know, and certainly is not ready for Formula One anyway. He's been good in Euro F3, but taking drivers from Euro F3 can be a bit hit and miss. So there you go. It's a difficult one. I kind of understand Toro Rosso's position, but Jev would make more sense to me than, say, Norris. Agree, Racing. 100% agree. He's an ex-Red Bull boy as well, so maybe. But I don't know. Was it him or Buemi where that ended quite hostile, didn't it? A lot of bridges were burned there, so perhaps that wouldn't happen. Markelov, yeah, he's a good opportunity to let Hartley stay. Kvyat's been mentioned a few times. I think The chance of Kvyat going back to Toro Rosso are slim to none. If nothing else, he's not going to want to go back there after what happened. There is a lot of hate and a lot of resentment there. There's no doubt. But for me, I don't see why they can't just give these drivers to the summer break. For me, that's what, half a season? Half a season seems about right. If they're terrible after half a season, they're probably not going to pick up. So, but it does seem, I agree with Racing. Stick with Hartley, and we'll see where we are with him, because who knows? He might turn this around. We've seen stranger things in Formula One. In terms of stranger things in Formula One, there are two people, not drivers, but away from the grid, Niki Lauda and Helmut Marko, that love to stir the pot and are becoming, for me, not banter kings, but they're getting very, very good at it. And they've both had their say, of course, on Lewis Hamilton and Daniel Ricciardo over the last sort of 24 hours. It was during a special promo at the Österreich ring. Or is it just the A1 ring? It's a Red Bull ring now, isn't it? A1 ring, back in the bloody 90s. Oh dear, the Red Bull ring. They've been talking about Lewis Hamilton, Daniel Ricciardo's contract situation. Both drivers, of course, as may have been mentioned, I don't know if you know, are out of contract at the end of the season, and neither have put pen to paper on a new deal as yet. But Lauda and Marko, in what I guess I'm going to have to call a pot-stirring exchange, that's harder to say than you might think, made some interesting comments. Now, Lauda simply has basically said that he's expecting Lewis Hamilton to sign and then negotiating promotion performances, but that he expects that will be solved. So basically everything Mercedes have been saying since January, they're still saying now. So nothing's changed there. The most interesting stuff, though, came from the topic of Ricciardo. Helmut Marko said, I hope that finally gets signed, referring to Ricciardo's contract, because Ricciardo says that as long as Hamilton is not yet contracted to Mercedes, he does not want to sign. That is something we've always suspected, but that has just confirmed. He is literally waiting on what Lewis Hamilton does. Niki Lauda, being Niki Lauda, couldn't resist the opportunity to shoot back, and he said Ricciardo blackmailed you with Hamilton, who has not yet signed. What Hamilton gets, don't know what that means, probably money, he cannot get anyway, so we have not made him an offer. So that to me says Red Bull are pretty much hanging on and waiting for what Lewis Hamilton's going to do. So is Ricciardo, but Mercedes are probably not in for Ricciardo unless Hamilton disappears. And I don't think Hamilton's going to go. I think he will stay to the end of 2020. I've been saying that for a while. Yes, of course, the longer it rumbles on, the more doubt will creep in, and that will ramp up speculation. But I think a 2-year deal would see him to the end of 2020, and I find that pretty much inevitable. I've always said I think he'll retire at the end of 2020 anyway. He's not going to want to go through another rules reset, so it's a case of when, not if, with Lewis Hamilton. Ricciardo, he's a tricky one. He is a tricky one. My gut still tells me that he will stay at Red Bull. I don't know why it tells me that. I just get the feeling that Red Bull is where he'll be till the end of 2020. See what Vettel's doing when his contract's up. Hamilton's new contract might be up by then as well. We'll kind of be in a similar situation to what we're in now. So I think he might hang on for a couple more years. I can't see him at Mercedes. I don't see him getting equal status at Ferrari. Although, having said that, if he does leave, that is probably the most likely option. So aside from the possibility of maybe Renault or perhaps McLaren, again, I don't think McLaren's going to happen. Renault could. It's a works deal. There isn't really anything out there. There is not really anything out there in terms of an opportunity for him to move other than the top teams. He wants to win a world championship. He said that so many times over the last couple of weeks. And we've said that so many times over the last couple of weeks, going on about this. It's silly season. It's going to go on for a while. We are just desperate for somebody to make a decision, because once one decision is made, whether it be Red Bull's engine decision, Ricciardo's contract decision, or Hamilton signs, everything else will fall into place. The dominoes will fall, and that'll be it. We'll have a rough idea as to what's going to happen. On the subject of contracts, by the way, I've got a feeling Kimi Räikkönen is going to stay for another year, and I'm going to put my neck on the line with that one. That's the other reason I don't see Ricciardo at Ferrari. So, what are you guys reading into that one? Like I say, I get the impression that that is basically Mercedes saying we don't want him, and Red Bull pretty much saying that once Hamilton's signed, he's going to stay with us. But I'm probably reading too much into that. As you know, I like to do it. Do you think he's going to stay at Red Bull next season, or do you reckon he's going to be on his way to Ferrari, Mercedes, possibly Renault? A couple of you in chat saying Renault. Absolutely. Rick Tirreno and Sainz to go to Red Bull. I think that's the most likely to happen, to be honest, if he doesn't get a Ferrari or a Mercedes seat, or doesn't stay at Red Bull. I don't see him going to McLaren. I absolutely don't. This is a whole lot of hot air. Classic Marco. Classic Lauda as well. They love to wide things up. Wow, brave prediction. Yeah, I like to make these predictions. As if you've seen any of my race predictions, you'll know how terrible I am at them. So do not put any money on Raikkonen staying at Ferrari next year, because he'll probably go to Sauber or something stupid like that to make me look ridiculous. Not that he gives a toss what I do, of course, but you know what I mean. Rick wants some more. Rick wants same or more millions than Max, but with the lack of seats, he might shoot himself in the foot. That's a good point, Daniel. Very good point. John T. Danny is waiting on the engine situation more than Hamilton. Yeah, that's the way I see it, to be honest. I don't know what he's going to do. It depends on what this upgrade's going to do this weekend. If it's true that Renault engine is only a tenth of a second quicker, maybe it'll be Honda getting announced that makes him want to stay. Technically a works deal as well there, effectively. So maybe Raikkonen retires, Ricciardo goes to Ferrari, Sainz to Red Bull, Van Dorn to Renault, Norris to McLaren. Van Dorn to Renault. Okay, I might have to screenshot that one and hold you to that one when it happens or doesn't happen. I've not heard that one before. I'd love to see Ricciardo at Ferrari fighting for the championship. He's desperate for a title. I think he is a driver that doesn't get the credit he deserves and doesn't get the hype that a lot of other drivers get. So, absolutely. Mercedes and Ferrari will be locked up, so Red Bull is the only space to be. Again, tend to agree. Rumour that the 40 brake horsepower increase to Honda. Yep. That's going to be bigger than the Renault one, apparently. But again, we'll wait and see what happens at the weekend. And I've got will Honda buy Toro Rosso? That's kind of relevant. Yeah, it's a possibility, but I think it's all down to what Red Bull decide. If Red Bull decide to go with Honda, then no. If Red Bull decide to stick with Renault, possibly. Because why not? What else have they got to lose? So, yeah, it's an intriguing one. A couple of you have seen it in chat as well, saying Ricciardo is overrated. I think he's underrated. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves, like I say, but that is open to interpretation. Now, the final story I want to go over today is pretty much one that I'm going to come to you for, because I have actually got a video that I recorded last night on this very man. And so I don't want to say too much to give away an awful lot from there, but I will go through the story very quickly for you. Bit of a cheeky preview on tomorrow's video topic, but Claire Williams has suggested that Lance Stroll will extend his stay at Williams after, and I quote, stop laughing, Sean, living up to expectations during his first 2 seasons at the team. Living up to expectations. Yeah. I'll just quickly read you the quote from Claire Williams. He has worked very hard to improve the points he had to improve. He's under a lot of pressure, getting criticism that is not deserved, and I think he's showing tremendous maturity in dealing with all of it. I am very proud of the work he has done for us, and I hope that we will soon be able to give him a car that will allow him to show his full potential. It's hard to read this when you try not to laugh. I honestly believe he has a great career ahead of him in Formula One. We are not talking about a contract yet, but we think Lance has lived up to our expectations so far, and we do not like to separate from drivers without good reason. I'm going to leave this one in terms of opinion to tomorrow's video, but looking at chat, you're all probably feeling how I am. I will say something. I don't have a big issue with Lance Stroll. A lot of people do. He's got a lot of criticism from me because he hasn't been good enough, but he is still young, and he is going to be given the time at Williams. In terms of business, again, it makes complete and total sense for Williams to have him on board. He brings in the money, which is absolutely fine for them. He gets a bit of experience in Formula 1, and who knows? He might come good in the end. He wasn't truly awful last year. He wasn't a million miles away from his very experienced teammate. Let's not forget that. And okay, he got a podium in Baku. It was lucky, but, he still got a podium in Baku. But at the end of it all, this year's car is awful. This year's car is the slowest on the grid, the worst in the grid in just about every way except for the power unit, and they've got nothing to do with that. So it's difficult to judge him and Sirotkin. You can only measure them against each other, and they're fairly even in so many ways. So it's a difficult one. There's some opinion that I wasn't going to give, but I just want to say I haven't got a huge issue with him. I don't think he's good enough or ready for Formula One. It's probably the better way to put it, but I don't have a huge issue with him. Liam says it's just sad to see Williams in such a state. Absolutely agree. Neither Williams drivers outperform. It's poor performance. He might as well just make it his own team. I don't know what kind of investment Daddy Stroll, as people call him, has got in the team, but I think it is quite big. So perhaps that's maybe where they're looking. Like I say, until 2021 and this cost capping and cost cutting, Williams taking the money from him and Sirotkin makes sense if that's the only way they can survive. But that team is struggling because of a lack of experience, and that's the truth. Kubica will drag that car to consistent points. That's open for debate. I don't think we'll know until, I mean, we've seen what he could do in testing and whatnot, but, you know, Sirotkin wasn't exactly terrible in pre-season testing versus Kubica and whatnot, so we'll see in that respect. Kubica and Di Resta for Williams in 2019. I think Di Resta's done with Formula One, to be honest. I'd like him to have got that seat, but didn't happen. Ollie Rowland deserves a shot. He's testing, isn't he? The next test for Williams, or practice. I can't remember which one I read earlier today. Nice description of Stroll, his talent, not F1 ready. Sugar Daddy Stroll. You guys are terrible. Lance Stroll is as worse as putting... I'm not going to read that one, actually. I just realised what you were saying, so I'm going to step away from that one. Let's have a look. Just having a quick... Yeah, what the hell happened to Paddy Lowe's saving stream? It is sad. A lot of frustration around Williams, I feel. I'm very disappointed with where they are. You listen to the talk at the start of the season. Claire Williams was banging on about we want to be top 5. We want to be in and around where we were last year. They're a million miles away. And that has to be chassis. It can't be engine. You can't ever blame that engine. So it has to be chassis. And it's disappointing. Don't understand why Pascal is not in the picture. He will be. If one of the Williams drivers is rumoured to be axed, you will be guaranteed to hear Norris, Wehrlein, Kubica, Verne, Buemi. There are a number of drivers that you could just pull out of a hat and name to get into that seat, because that's the way Formula One is. There is such a pool of talent in the lower categories, and there is such a pool of talent of drivers that are not in Formula One that probably should be and have been in Formula One. That's the problem. But for teams like Williams, like I say, it makes sense to put them in the car because of the money if they can survive. So I don't think we're going to see any big name drivers, if you like, at Williams until 2021 at the earliest, when perhaps this cost cap comes in. But a couple in chat saying Claire Williams' issue. We're discussing this on Sunday, actually, I believe. I seem to remember, and there was a lot of talk about getting rid of Claire Williams. So Williams say they don't like to drop drivers without good reason. Me, what did you do to Rosberg then? Okay, fair enough. Where do you think Ericsson will end up in the Canadian Grand Prix? Probably like 16th. Oh, please be right. I get something right for a change. Kvyat a long shot. He was linked with the seat, of course, back in January. Could happen. Why not bring Lynn for testing, maybe? So Hartley's head is on the block. I think he's... It's if not when with Hartley, I feel, in terms of going. And again, I feel sorry for him. Perez to Williams, maybe. I think they take him in a heartbeat, but I don't think Perez would want to go to Williams. I think he'd be crazy to leave Force India to go there. Alex Lynn. A few people saying Alex Lynn. I've not really seen much on that. I don't know if there's a rumour out there that he could do, but maybe. It's always possible. They have a good reason to drop Claire Williams now. That's a very good point. But yeah, I think... I don't want to say give him time, because I don't think you could give him all the time in the world, and I don't think we're talking a top-end driver in Formula One. But there have been, and there are, and I'm not naming them before you ask, worse drivers on the grid than Lance Stroll. So I don't think Williams are in an awful position in that respect. But it's all down to money, let's be honest. I'm not saying he's talentless. Same with Sirotkin. They're not talentless. They had to have some pedigree in the first place to be in Formula One. You can't just rock up with 50 million and say, I'll have that seat, please. You've got to have had something in lower formula to at least get a super license. So at the end of the day, they've got some talent somewhere, but I think there are better drivers that could fill that seat. But yeah, let's not get too into opinion, because that's kind of dumping all over my video for tomorrow now. So you know what I'm like. I like to repeat myself every now and again. But we are going to jump on to our and finally. And on this day in 1982, the first ever Detroit Grand Prix was held. Yes, we are back in Detroit, second day running, where John Watson took victory, having started from 17th on the grid. He made his way up to second place, only to find himself 13 seconds behind Keke Rosberg. However, the race leader was struggling with an ailing gearbox and struggling for tyre grip. And once Rosberg had lost his third gear, Watson was able to make the pass and take the lead. That win, by the way, set the record for the lowest a driver had started and gone on to take victory. However, as you will all know, I'm sure if you're F1 history buffs, Watson would trump that 1 year later in Long Beach, where I believe, off the top of my head, he started 22nd and went on to win the race. So a bit of a record there for you. Nice little on this day. Beautiful car as well. Not as stunning as the first one that we had back on Monday, of course, that Lotus 49. What a car that was, but a little bit of F1 history for you there. Couple of things before I go. I do want to just let you know, coming up this weekend, F1 Daily, of course, every day except Sunday, because we stream anyway on a Sunday, twice this Sunday, of course. But Friday stream, I've seen a few asking in chat, that will be at 9 p.m. UK time, an hour later, because obviously practice is later for us in the UK here. is over in Canada, obviously. And then on Saturday, it's swapping with what the quali report would have been. So rather than 8 p.m, it will be 4 p.m, with the quali report probably a little bit later in the evening if you're in the UK. So there you go. Lauda was second in Long Beach and started P23, I believe. Yeah. Crazy, Chaz, and good to see you as well, mate. Good to see you on the stream. But yeah, so the times are moving around this weekend. I'll let you all know on Twitter, so make sure you follow me over there. Facebook, you can follow me on there. That is still getting sorted. You know what people are like when you want to try and sort a problem out for you. They take forever. You can join us on Discord as well. The links to all of those are in the description down below. I will be back tomorrow with another F1 Daily, 8 p.m. UK time, normal time, of course, and there will be a video up tomorrow by 4 on Lance Stroll. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.